Hi, this is Ken Gosnell with CEO Experience, and today at our Well Done podcast, I have Mr. Joe Fisher. Joe is an excellent leader and CEO that has been leading on mission for over 40 years as he's worked in lots of different avenues to help young men and women attend college for the very first time. So, Joe, welcome to the Well Done podcast. Thank you for being with me today.
Glad to be here with you, Ken.
Hey, Joe,
Glad.
I'm a big fan, and of course, I think a lot of your leadership. And as I mentioned, you've been leading for a long time. Can you tell us about what is the most important aspect to leading an organization well over a long period of time? And can you tell us a little bit more about your organization?
Wow. You know what? I tell you what, it's great. If you want to lead an organization, please know your why. I can't tell you enough. Please know your why. Please know that it's not all about you, that it's not about you. It's about recognizing your gift and being able to use it and understanding why you're here, why you've been sent by this powerful being for you to be here to do what you need to do to help him to finish his work. And that is powerful stuff, man. And I think that's what makes this work so powerful for me. And so it keeps me energized and passionate for it, man. It's nothing like, once you recognize that, man, that's powerful stuff.
I love it.
And I've used it, it was funny. And I just want to say this on my introduction. You said 40 years. And I thought about it. And I say, okay, I got 40 years of coaching, and the 30 using the organization. So I was putting that all together. So thank you very much on that.
Well, I do believe your coaching piece. Many of you don't know you were a teacher before you started your entrepreneurial journey of owning a nonprofit or leading a nonprofit. But those teaching skills were really critical because you were pouring into in young people's lives. You were teaching and imparting your wisdom. So I call that part of your leadership journey. So I love the passion though, and you are the most passionate person that I know. You're driven by your why. And I wrote in the book, Well Done, about profit with a purpose. And I believe that God calls us to not only develop a profitable organization or a profitable endeavor, but to do it on purpose or on mission. So can you tell us a little bit more about that mission that drives you, and tell us about this nonprofit organization that you've really been an innovator in, that you've kind of created a space here that really was unrecognized before you saw the need for it?
As you know, I'm very, very passionate about education. It's amazing. Everybody chases a dollar. The dollars will come if you chase education first, whether it's informal or informal. And when I say informal, I think about, as you always talk about, Ken, surround yourself with people of wisdom. I think about my mom and my dad. My gosh, my mother's 6th grade education, but had a PhD in wisdom, problem solving, right? My father, a gifted engineer. And you watch those people make it, man, just having character and believing in God. That's very powerful. But what drives me is getting that knowledge. It's funny. I got beyond my community, like Plato's allegory of the cave. And you got to understand the stereotype for any kid going to college. You either got to be outstanding academically or you got to be an outstanding athlete. And I had no desire to go to college. Well, guess what? I became an outstanding athlete. The kid that I wanted to run, right? And I found out I could go to college. And so, you know what? I had a praying mom. And you know what? I managed to go. But you know what the blessing was, though, Ken? It's amazing what they say, the children will lead you, right? Right? You know what the crazy thing is, Ken? I went to Catholic University in D.C. I had no business there. The teacher said, what, you got into Catholic University? How you get in there? I don't know, but I'm going. I know for a fact, because of my praying mom, it was meant for me to go there, because I just read just recently. I had no idea. As I talk about the mission of your business, wow. And the mission of Catholic University is faith and reason. Huh? Isn't that crazy? So here I am at Catholic University. I learned that kids like me growing up in poverty, and here I was, an outstanding athlete, got there, Ken. And come to find out, I learned, talking about education, Ken, outside the cave, Plato's allegory out of the cave. You're in darkness and don't know. Well, guess what? I'm out now. And I learned, Ken, and talking about keeping the light turned on and having faith, I learned that kids like me growing up in poverty had money to go to college and didn't know it. And guess what, Ken? The money that I had was equal to my athletic scholarship.
Wow.
Now, come on, Ken. I'm chasing a scholarship. It's like the Wizard of Oz, right? The answer is right there. But I had a praying mom. I continued and hang on to her light. Right? And I got this knowledge, and that's when I learned that these kids of poverty, like me growing up, and still don't know this to this day. This is still true to this day. They do not know they have money to go to college and can graduate with little or no debt, which is what I got the education to do, learning about it by coaching and going to graduate school. And I've just been passionate about that because you got kids of poverty. Regardless, it's not a race issue. It's a social economic issue. Please, I have a social economic agenda. Any kid in America, I don't care who you are, you want to go to college, you can go. You got money to go. I don't care if you're in Southeast DC, where I grew up in poverty, or Appalachia. I don't care if you're on an Indian Native American on a reservation. If you got the right people working with you with integrity, you can go. You know what? And that's my calling.
I love it.
I don't play with that, Ken. I don't.
You know what you said about your mother, praying mom, right?
Praying mom.
That made
Mom Fisher. She's no joke, man. You know what? I'm gonna tell you how good of a prayer warrior my mom was. I'm one of 8 kids. Father gone all day. Good dad. That's why I wear a tie today. You know, I'm here on Zoom. You see my tie, right? Every time you see me, I wear a tie, right? Even though he was in the recycling business, man, he would go to church, man, on Sunday looking good. I wanted that same look. And guess what? I have it.
That's right.
And mom, regardless of the challenges that came, she always stayed in prayer. My mother always knew there was an answer. And do you know? My sister and I, we were just talking. We never saw her sweat.
Wow.
We never saw my mom sweat. No matter what challenge came, we never saw her sweat. And I shared this with you. A challenging time we went through, and I was in 7th grade. And my mom, staying in prayer, she says, Joe, here's $1. Take it down to the rental office to pay our rent. I said, okay, Mom. I had no idea what was going on. But I paid the rent, Ken. No idea. And she was an at-home mom. I came back and she said, praise God. Mom never stopped believing from the time she passed away in her 83 years on this earth. She knew why she was here. That's powerful stuff, Ken.
Right. I love it. Yeah, I talk about principle, what I call believe in asking the impossible, right? And I say that people can do the impossible when somebody believes it's possible. And your mother, who was a praying woman, she believed that anything was possible for you. And she invested that in there. And that's part of the way I love, because you're really living out her legacy as you're continuing to believe in the impossible with a lot of kids that are growing up in poverty. You've built an organization that has now had a track record and a history of helping break the poverty cycle in those young people's lives, because you've replaced poverty with education. And you believe in them. You've probably sent, hundreds, if not thousands of kids to college because you believed it was possible for them. You and I've talked. I was the first in my family to go to college. And I remember a high school counselor telling me I shouldn't even consider college. It's not even a
Mhm.
possibility. We didn't have any money and there were no funds. And my grades weren't all that great in high school. I was more interested in chasing girls than chasing an education, back in those days. But I had somebody that believed in me and said, no, Ken, you can go to college to
Mm.
show me. And that's what your organization does, which is what I love about it. You believe in the impossible, which is fantastic. Can you tell us where to find a little bit of information about your can you give us your website so we can have our listeners go to your website so they can learn a little bit more about what you do?
Well, if you type in First Generation College Bound, it'll come up.
That's perfect.
It'll come right up. Or you can go to FGCB, F as in Frank, G as in gate, C as in cat, B as in boy.org. And it'll come right up. First Generation College Bound. And hey, there's a lot of information on there so you can you can learn about what we've done over the years. And Ken, wow, when you know you're working in the truth, man, it's pretty powerful. Here I was, day one, when I knocked on 300 doors, seeking 10 kids to go to college, a minimum, and I found them. And you know what? Knowing that they had money to go to college, I can make it. They didn't know, but I knew. I tell people what I do is I'm the guy walking around with jumper cables.
Well, that's fantastic. Now you and your team do that. You've developed a team that help go into high school, work with high school students and help them begin to know that process of how any kid can go to college and get that education. I believe in the value of improving yourself, and that's kind of the business that I'm in. You've always believed in the value of education and improving yourself. Why do you think it's important for this generation, our young people today? What's the message that you could give them about why they should be on a consistent path to improving themselves?
Oh my gosh, Ken. I don't look for the most outstanding student academically. What I want is the most outstanding in terms of their character. If that character is strong and you believe like Mom Fisher, you're going to make it. She got her GED at age 52.
Wow.
After all 8 of us graduated high school, which was the goal for my mom and dad. I think that people fail to realize the strength or the importance of character, having faith. And that's the one thing that a test does not measure. It does not measure Mom Fisher's faith. And you know what? In anything, that's part of your attitude. And you know that attitude makes the difference. And if you don't believe that, God gave us that word knowing that it's right. It's 100% correct. Why, Ken? Because if you take the word attitude, A being 1 in the alphabet category and T being 20 something, and you add those up based on their numerical value, Ken, it gives you 100%.
Wow.
So hey, you can work hard all you want. Oh, I worked hard. I need this. Look. What about your attitude? You got the right attitude, man. It can take you beyond. It can take you towards excellence. Perfection will keep you in one place. It's like taking a picture. It looks great. It stands still. But the one thing about excellence, that's God's work. You're never going to catch them. You're never going to catch excellence, but you're going to get better. And I think that I enjoy doing this work, and we stress this to our kids. If I've got the parents on board with their attitude, got the kid on board, that's why we can help the many and not the few. We're out to help the many, not the few. That's all we need. We got the money, practicing college affordability for you to go. But if you manage your attitude, you can go to college and graduate with little to no debt. And just to think, Ken, I don't have to walk around raising scholarship money. I got these kids. I got the Joe Fishers on the ground floor now, and the Mom Fishers out there, giving these kids faith and hope that you can do it. Practice that humility. Listen to us. Stay the course. Don't get distracted. And that's one of the problems I worry about our kids today. I just want any adult out there, any adult out there who wants to work with our young people today, stay grounded to the basics, stay grounded to old school. Those kids need that wisdom. They need that empathy, Ken. They need that discipline to stay the course, to not get distracted by the layers of social media, because they want you and they want to control you for what they want, not to really help you to go where you want to go. And you got to have somebody around you to help you to recognize that. And that is the challenge of our youth today. And I want any adult out there to know they need us. Don't you ever think that they don't need us. They need us big time. Trust me. Trust me. What they say, humans are at their best when disaster strikes, right?
That's right.
They need us.
That's right. You know, one of our friends and one of my mentors, Joshua Matthews, he's made a statement years ago, and it just really ties to what you're talking about. He said, in life, you either learn from mistakes or from mentors. And mentors are a lot easier than mistakes. And I just love that statement, right? Because that's what you're doing. You're really wanting to get adults to mentor or work with young people to help them and show them how they can go to college, how they can break that poverty cycle. And that's what your program is about. You've developed some coaches that go into the local high school and or high schools, and they begin to work with those kids to help them to find the necessary paperwork and do all the things that are critical to find the right college for them on the way, that and whatever funds that might be available to them, so that they can graduate college with little or no debt, which is kind of the mission that you have, because you're breaking that poverty cycle. You're giving them an education without putting them further into debt. And I just think that's a great innovative program. So I love that mentorship model that you've developed through your program. Can you talk a little bit more about, I mean, you just gave us the passion behind it, but
Right.
a little bit more about your coaches and how you develop
Sure.
and train them to invest in the lives of the young people that they work with.
Yeah, you know, you go through these life experiences to help you to get where you want to go, because I just want you to know I'm very comfortable with leadership because I know where I'm going and I know my purpose. So we're second to nobody because we know where we're going. I don't say that to be arrogant. I say that to know why I'm here. And I tell my team that you know your place to lead. If you know your place to lead, we're going to be one hell of a team. We're going to know when the help is needed. We're not going to let anybody fall down or go into a hole when we know that we got the resources to help them not to make that happen. So I would say to you, Ken, yes, I started this 32 years ago, First Generation College Bound, with 10 kids, and we have helped more than 2,600 kids to go to college. And the reason why I've been able to make that happen and to get the help that I've needed is because I've kept all of my data for 32 years. And we have, as you know, because of that, 32 years, I've had to get the training and everything that I've needed in terms of being able to hire people to support me, to help the many, not the few. Ken, I just want to thank you for recognizing, and you share with me, Joe, what you're doing. You're a poverty solution organization. And why? Because we have helped 2,600 kids get off to college, Ken. And we have 765 students with a bachelor's degrees. 1,500 are still in college. 1,500 are still in college, and we're tracking them. We were blessed to get funding to hire a retention coordinator now to maintain the relationship. By the way, Ken, everything we do is about relationships. That's our secret sauce. That's part of the secret sauce, okay? So you can have metrics, but you need the sauce. You know, numbers stay in one place, but the sauce makes everything move, right?
I love it. I love it.
So we've got 1,500 kids in college. We have 700 plus alumni. We're heading towards goal 1,000 in terms of bachelor's degrees. We have 165 associate's degrees, Ken. We have I think it's 145 master's degrees, 16 doctorates, and I believe something like 4 PhDs, man. And here it is. Undergraduate school, they're graduating with little to no debt. But what I love most what I love most, Ken, not only are they graduated with little to no debt, that's always been my goal. And by the way, we have tracked these kids. It's just like raising kids. You know, how many kids lives get interrupted because they lose a parent or somebody's raising them and nobody's there and they grow up all confused? Well, when you enroll in first generation, we are committed to see you all the way through.
Wow.
And you graduated with little no debt. And you know what? Because they're more endowed in terms of education and knowledge, guess what? All those kids today are having a better quality of life compared to where they started.
That's right.
And that's what this is all about.
I love it. I think it's fantastic. Again, just to be able to pour into the life of the first generation or the next generation, helping them to break that poverty cycle and help them to see themselves maybe like nobody else in their family or nobody else in their community would see them. And you're saying to them, hey, they've got a future, right? That they've got a destiny inside of them, that they can go on to that bachelor's degree or that master's degree or that doctorate degree. That's impressive work. Hey, Joe, you've been in business for over 30 years and you've been coaching for, like I said, over 40 years. I know you've endured some setbacks. Anytime you run a business or you have a passion-driven organization, sometimes there's difficulty. It's unfortunate, but there are difficult times that happen to us, whether it's getting started or having to just overcome a setback that was unexpected. You talked a little before about attitude, and you talked about your mother and how she overcame some of the setbacks in her life. Can you tell us what you would tell a kid that, or even another business owner that may be really struggling right now, that they're thinking about just giving up and maybe not doing something, but they know they've been called to it. So how do you get over some of those setbacks and difficulties?
You know, I was very blessed to read this book on how to start a nonprofit and going about it the right way. I didn't start it to make money. I started because I wanted to solve a problem, because somebody said, if somebody's already doing it, why not join them? Like I became a teacher for 35 years because I wanted to teach. I became a coach because I wanted to coach. But to do this work that I'm doing, nobody was doing it. So I think that I accepted the calling of, first of all, starting off volunteering to do this work. I volunteered doing this work, even though I was teaching and coaching and had the support of my wife, which is critical. I had to have the support of my wife, because I got 2 kids. Not only, somebody's got to keep them going, right? And they were in elementary and middle school at the time. But my wife was very supportive. And to this day, she's still been with me on this journey. She's just as passionate about it as I am. But I think that, for example, I had to, knowing that I was, you got to recognize that you're doing it for the right reasons. You've got to. If you know that you're doing it for the right reasons, you're going to be okay. Why do I know that? As I told you, I knew kids had the money. All I wanted to do was get the results to prove it, right? And guess what? I did. Once I got those results, there was no stopping. So I ended up getting the results, which kept me committed, strategically trying to find the right money. If you are starting a business, please, 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 you need the right money and you need the right people around you. You do not need distractions. I'd rather to start small with the right resources, the money and human resources, rather than the many causing distractions. I think that's so important. And I was so committed to this journey that one time we got this grant. And this grant required us to, in order for us, we got this grant and the money didn't come in on time. I got some employees to be paid. Everybody want their money. They got bills too, right? And my financial manager, bless her soul, told me, says, Joe, the money's coming in, but we got to pay these bills. We knew the money was coming. What are we going to do? And I had to borrow the money from my retirement. I had to take money out of my retirement, borrow against it, and put that money back in. And the money came in and I did. I was just that passionate, committed. And I don't know why, but I knew that God would find a way. And I think you've got to believe, and I think that is important for you to, when one of the things that happens is that when you do this work and you get the results, whether it's for profit or nonprofit, and you got a good product, people are going to want it. They're going to want it. And guess what? We've been really blessed because people have recognized our journey. They've recognized our results. They've recognized our many alumni, as you know, Ken. Our board, my chairman of my board today is a pastor, started my program in 5th grade. I've got another member on the board that started my program in the 6th grade, 7th grade from the same community. And then from that same community, as you know, this past year, we got a young man who was homeless, who's now a Maryland state senator. And let me tell you all something. Boy, has it been worth all those challenges. Why? Because as we've been looking for somebody to keep the organization stable, he helped me to recognize my calling. And my calling is not just getting people off to college, and I know that I can, but it's also helped me to recognize that legislation is my calling. And that has been a blessing. So I would encourage anyone, please, the one thing I know, my gift is coaching. My gift is advisement, encouragement, and support. I can find the good in you. Everybody's got some good, but it's important you use it with integrity. You use it for the reason God put you here. You don't use it to control people like Jesus Christ. You use it to influence people. And I think that's what you've got to remember. You start a business, and that's why customer service is so important, especially if it's here for the people. They are first, but please, as we talked about this, stewardship is very important, regardless of the business that you run. So I think that I hope that answer in terms of the question that you.
Oh, that's beautiful, Joe. And I love the vision about that purpose, keeping that purpose and that dream in mind, that in your difficult moments you can vision cast out and you can see what the results of those efforts are. I think it's one of the things that we have as a leader is we can see the benefits sometimes, and we just need to own that a little bit more, because that is what's going to continue to pull us through some of those difficult times. I wrote about in the book the purpose or profit with the purpose. And the reason that principle is so important, Jesus made a statement. He said, what's it gain a man to gain the whole world, or what profit is a man to gain the whole world and yet lose his soul? And in that statement is this essential principle that we should have a profitable endeavor, but we need to be driven by purpose. And the reason that principle is so valuable is, if you've got a business for 33 years or even 5 years or 10 years, you may have years of unprofitability. You may have years where it's not making money, and it doesn't necessarily, because, you got to get traction. You have to find your distribution list. You got to find your customers, so on and so forth. But you can always have purpose. You can always have the drive, the why behind why you started that business. And so we shouldn't lose our purpose just when we get profitable. We should continue to enhance our purpose. And that's what you've really done. You've had lean years, but man, you've worked through those lean years to now get funding from state legislation. And, I just think your program needs to be all over the country. I can just see the benefit of thousands of PhDs, thousands of doctors that have gone to school because you encouraged them to do so through your program. And think about all the millions of lives that they would change through in bachelor's and master's degrees, all of a sudden, because somebody believed in them. And that gets me motivated, and I'm sure that's what gets you motivated as well.
I just want to mention something too, is very important. You talked about the challenges that we've gone through in the program, right? And another challenge I had an employee that was very, very challenging. And somebody said, fire. And I said, I couldn't do that. I had too much going on, and I didn't have the infrastructure to respond to that kind of change. And I prayed, and I didn't fire her.
Mm.
And man, the one thing I've learned is that sometimes God has you in training for what is to come.
Mm.
And you know what? That was a blessing that I went through that. God gave me a way, it worked out. The transition was done, and a person came on board, and the whole energy of the organization changed.
Mm.
We've been blessed, and that has a lot to do with Ken today. And please, everybody, understand this. John Maxwell said it best. It's what do you say? It takes one. What do you say? It takes one to help the many. Something that he says is very powerful. And I think I have a team now that I'm training to be able to do what Joe Fisher. We call them mini Joe Fishers. I told Ken the other day, I was telling them about what I was doing, and I was passing my spirit on to them. I said, "You all are like my disciples out there." They said, "Oh, we're like your disciples." Yeah, look at us. It's about 12 of us here. And I said, "Yeah, it is." But I think, it's like that because Jesus, all he could do, Ken, was Jesus Christ could leave behind his spirit on the sauce, right? And that's what we all have. If you truly believe you have that spirit, you have that sauce. But I just want to say that, and that's one of the things that we do with our staff in terms of I make it very clear to them. Everybody's different, but it's the sauce that is applied to their gift that makes them become a team and to help each other and for us to be powerful when you recognize that. And I think that you mentioned about the training. Well, we've been very blessed. We've been very blessed. You need to know this because to help the many, I don't need to scale to be all over the place. But what I have recognized is that we need to train people who want to do this work. Mm. If you want to go out there and be a disciple, and if you want to, if you got the spirit to really help, and you got that empathy, and you got to have discipline, Ken. It takes empathy, discipline, and integrity to do this work. It is not about you. And if you have those core ingredients and that humility to learn, let me tell you something. You could touch a kid. You can get one kid. I can guarantee you, you find one kid of poverty out there, you'll call us up and we're the 911. I don't care what state you're in. And they have to focus on college affordability. So we got our, we just got, I hope that we'll be finalized end of this month, Ken, and we'll be able to train people on college affordability, especially for students of poverty.
So you'll be able to train anybody or anywhere in the country how to help kids on their college affordability and how to break that poverty cycle. Is that correct?
Yeah. So if they want to be trained on, helping kids of poverty to go to an affordable college, that's what we do. We don't promote one college being better than the other. We promote college affordability from the community college on up. Don't forget now, it's it's not the college that determines your success. It's the spirit that God has given you. If you believe and you take that spirit with you, like I said, that attitude, it is going to make a difference. I just got a call today from a parent where they graduated from, he went in one job, he didn't get it, and he went to one of the HBCUs, and he went for this job. He didn't know how it was going to go, and he left. He sent them a thank you note. A week later, he got a call and he said, "Hey, you know what? You interviewed really well. And you know what? You went to an HBCU. We really want to hire you because of what we're doing here. And we want to give kids a chance." And I said, "Wow, that's wonderful. Somebody gave me a chance, Ken."
That's right.
And that's what it's all about. But I think even more importantly, this young man had a spirit. I knew he was going to get a job. And I think, and by the way, listeners, how can you not be proud? As Ken said, you got teachers out there, you got doctors, you got people in the service industry. I get a call one day. What happens? One of our students, growing up in poverty, low income, now an attorney. And I get a call. He finished Duke Law School. I get a call. What is he doing? He's managing the immigrants being dropped off at Kamala Harris's home, working for the federal government. He's in a whole different place today, experiencing a quality of life.
Right.
Or I think about Dontre Scott, the dentist, the doctor in dentistry, practicing root canals. You know what I love about his story? When he was going to NYU, he called me and told me, he said, you know what, Mr. Fisher? I thought I was poor. What I had to do, I had to go down to one, it was in one of the third world country, helping people with their teeth. And he said, that was such a blessing for me.
Wow.
Dontre Scott, doctorate in dentistry, specializing in root canals, growing up in poverty, now has his own business. And you know what? I saw, God, when God gives you a purpose and a vision, there's no turning back.
I love it. That's absolutely correct. Hey, one of the things that I love about, I appreciate so much of what you do, and people can go to your website. They can
Sure.
donate directly. You are a nonprofit, so it is a taxable donation.
Yes.
And you put a lot of those funds right into the helping those kids be able to get to college and do so with little or no debt as they come out.
Right.
We hear a lot about the new generation today. Your business has been working with young adults and young kids over the past 3 decades, but we hear a lot of today about this generation is different, and a lot of people are discouraged about how this generation will come into the workforce and how they'll work. You're on the front line of that. You're dealing with kids and you're seeing them up front in their schools, kids in poverty, but you're also seeing how to invest in them and really bring out the best in them. And then you've got these great stories that we talk about. What do you want our listeners to know about this generation, and what can they do if they own a business or when they see a young person that's in high school today? What advice or counsel could you give them about how to invest in that young person's life?
Ken, this goes back when I was in graduate school, and it talked about institutions. First generation college bound has established a culture. Things we tolerate, the things we don't tolerate. You have to be in line with our culture. And I think that I'm just as old school as you're going to be. And I practice generational truth. I practice what my parents have passed on to me, and it still works today. I dare not be distracted. I'm not worried about the new way. I want to know if you got the basic foundation to truly learn, that empathy, that discipline. I would say to any employee today, I wouldn't hire anybody. I would establish my business, making sure, just like we hire people here, we make sure they have those basic core ingredients that we're looking for. And I think the kids, let me tell you something about kids. They recognize that. They will respond the way you respond to them. You need to learn to talk to them, not at them.
That's
you need
good.
to listen and understand. You don't know what's going on in these kids' lives. You just don't know. You got some kids that really care, that have potential, but they don't have the support at home. And you have to be able to get to know people. The one thing that I'm very big on, Ken, I make no bones about this. We're a social economic organization. We don't do anything race-based. Like my mom, we do things getting to know people. It's amazing when you and I sit down and talk. We had more in common than we realized.
That's right.
As far as the way we grew up. And I just learned recently, one of the Roy Gilmore, my first board chair, come to find out he was head of the police division here in Prince George's County, one of them, and unbelievable mind. This man, he could be a general, and he helped me to put things together. And I didn't know this, but I met him in the housing project when I first started the program, because he did community-based policing. Very good guy. He had the respect of the community. We had things really going. But the one thing I just recently learned, and we were talking, we both grew up getting government food. And we both shared the same experience, how we used to go and get the powdered eggs and the cornmeal and we really need to get to know people. And I don't care where I go. Mom Fisher taught all 8 of us well. perception is dangerous without the facts. And when you think about Jesus Christ, he was a person that was not judgmental. You wanted help, he didn't judge, he reached out to help you. The challenge is you have to humble yourself and you've got to believe. And that's what makes the difference. And that's what we try to practice. And this is what the young people need. So I would say to you, as just like you have rules and regulations in your house, I don't care what everybody else is doing. This is what we do here. And I would say that to any business owner. Please, 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 as I said to Ken, I got training in human resources, one of the best things ever happened to me. And it helped me to put that structure in place and the right, the right recruitment plan to do that. But I think that Ken, as Dr. Smith said when I was in college, she said, I don't believe in the generation gap. She said, I don't believe it. She said, why? Because I try to stay in tune to what's going on so that I don't have a gap. Many of us, we're locked in time. We are locked in our own time. You can't do that. I got grandkids I'm raising. I love it because they, I share with them the past. They share with me what's coming, but they have the wisdom to help me understand. And I think that that is important. As my daughter said to me, because she went to Catholic University, she said the theme of Catholic University, Papa, is light the way, which is related to faith and reason, which I shared you on the opening of this show. You got to learn to connect, and we have a powerful relationship.
I love it. Just the simple practice of listening, right? The Bible says, be quick to listen and slow to speak, right? And this generation wants us to listen. They want us to talk to them. They want us to treat them with respect and to treat them with value. And just as you mentioned, as you treat them, they'll treat you. Boy, that's a great testimony, right? Of what you're communicating. This generation can be the best generation if we invest in them. And I've seen it. I've seen some tremendous people in this 18 to 20-year-old, 22-year-olds that are hardworking, that they're diligent, they're seeking for truth. They want to work hard. They want to be leaders in this generation. And they just need some people to come alongside of them, to mentor them, to support them, and to do what you're doing through your organization, challenge them to break that poverty cycle, and which is a pretty powerful thing. You mentioned your praying mother, and you talked about your faith and going to Catholic University. Obviously, one of the things that we work at is helping Christian CEOs and business owners. Can you talk a little bit about how your faith has shaped your business and how it's motivated or encouraged you during difficult times, when you know some of those stories that are in the Bible that maybe have shaped who you are as a leader?
Yeah, as I said, I always go to my mom as my reference point. If you're a believer, if you're really, really a believer, you need to know there's always an answer. And I think that's what we fail to remember. We can go in such darkness that we fail not to keep that in mind. And that helps me when the challenges come. And what helps me when the challenges come, I always remember it is not about me. And I always go back to what Jesus Christ said on the cross. This helps me tremendously. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And sometimes, Ken, I have to go and I have to say, I get an employee. It's funny, isn't it funny how you hire somebody and they're great when you hire them, and then all of a sudden you get frustrated at some point, but then you got to go back and you got to remember why you hired them in the first place. And it makes me think about, you got to love people. I always love, it's easy for, oh man, I will always love you. Trust me. And this is the reason why, because you have been impactful. Okay. I'm sure not just with me, but many of us. I say this because you love people for what they're able to give, not what you want. We're special. Can you just so happen to be able to touch me? But guess what? You may not be that person to touch someone else. Right. And I want you to know it's okay. Maybe that's somebody else's space. But you gotta love people for what they're able to give, not what you want. And as you know, I ran track and did very well. I was on a relay team. And guess what? Everybody was put on a certain leg on that relay team to help them to do well. And that's how you have to run your business. You have to recognize the talents and gifts of your staff and get them to work as a team. And guess what? If you don't have all the right team members, remember, it's okay.
Mm.
You're going to make progress, not the way you want to. Stay in prayer, and God will send you that person to really help you to move the way you want to move, which is what we've been working on for 32 years. That's the power of prayer. That is the power of faith. That is the power of doing God's work. Got to be patient. It's going to happen as long as you keep doing it with integrity. And the staff is going to love you because of it.
I love it. I love that picture of loving, the idea of just thinking about other people, whether it's our team, whether it's our customer, whether it's the people that we're working with around in our businesses. Philippians 2 is one of my favorite passages where it talks about what Jesus did when he left heaven and thought of us that came to earth. It says, have the same attitude, we were talking about attitude, that Christ had, who considered others more important than he considered himself. And I just love that perspective, that reminder that, part of the mission of business and part of the mission of our life is really just to consider others. It's just to be thoughtful of others, to be loving to others, and to find out how we can support them and how we can help them and how we can encourage them. And, I think today in our society, unfortunately, we've become a lot of self-focused. It's about social media and what can I promote of myself, and that may be a place for that. But we should always remember that business is really about other focus, right? And you just epitomize that with your attitude and your perspective. Joe, you deserve the words "well done" because you've invested everything that you have and all of your life into giving to others. And there's just so few people that have that same perspective and heart that you've had. So I'm just so proud of you. I'm proud of your organization. And I'm delighted that you're doing the calling or fulfilling the calling that God has for you. So thank you very much.
Well, I tell you, thank you, Ken. And I do want you to know I've been so blessed. I established a relationship with one of the business owners. Some of you have heard of the business, no question about it. But this young man had just gotten hired right out of college. He worked with Jersey Mike's, and I met him in 2009. I love the food. I wanted to open a Jersey Mike's, but Pat and I chose not to because that's not the kind of work we wanted to do, knowing what was involved. Mm-hmm. But we always kept a relationship because we liked the food there. And we stayed in touch. And I said, wow, you know what? You got a lot of young people working here. You ought to think about getting with them. He said, well, not right now. We're not there. And I just hung in there with them. And here we are all these years later. And I do want you to know that, I've been, we have a partnership now where on March 29th, they will be donating 100% of their revenue to First Generation College Bound at 4 of his stores.
Wow.
And I think that that's what we're looking for. We're looking for people that truly want to return on their investment. He has seen the results in our work. He believes in us. And like I said, since year one, we have been seeking the right money. And I can guarantee you, whatever dollars, if you're out there, you're listening, we want to not only First Generation College Bound wants to be here for generations to come. And Ken knows this very, very well. We are establishing the pipeline of poverty to higher education. Higher education. It's not about the money, but it's about kids of poverty having a quality of life. They're going to be more well endowed in knowledge so that they can help many. And I think that and that's the one thing we believe in. So I created this thing 32 years ago, chasing the right money from different sources to sustain this for generations. Why? Because there's a need for what we do.
Absolutely. There's always a need for education, and as long as there's poverty in the world, there's a need for people to continue to break that poverty cycle. So thank you, Joe, for your work. I do encourage the listeners to go to FGCB, First Generation College Bound, and .org. Sorry,
.org. Yes.
First Generation College Bound, FGCB.org, to find out more about Joe's organization, figure out how you can support it. I encourage you to be praying for him and for his team and for this generation to break this poverty cycle by through education and by going to college and really finding the destiny and the calling that God has potentially for their life. Joe, thank you for being a well-done leader. One last comment. Do you have any other encouragement or last statements that you'd like to give to the listeners?
I cannot tell you, being in the nonprofit sector and being trained in the for-profit sector under you, it has been very eye-opening that it's very powerful, that it's important that any leader stay grounded to their why. Like Chick-fil-A, they know their why. My why is I know that kids of poverty can go to college and graduate with little to no debt. And we know how to do it. And we haven't lost our way, regardless of what anybody else says, because we have the formula to make it happen. We have the metrics, but most importantly too, we have the sauce. And I would say to you as a leader, recognize your metrics. If you got the metrics, you know that it's going to work. But in order to move the product, you got to have the attitudes that are right, that are operating at 100% to make it happen. That's right. Because anybody with the wrong attitude can turn you upside down. So stay in prayer, stay lifted, keep your cup of love filled with the words that you've learned from God that has helped you to get where you are today. Hold on to that. And no matter what, you're going to make it. So yes, I would say leave you with that. And it's a major responsibility. And always remember to practice stewardship. You do that, you're going to be okay.
So those are excellent words. Thank you for being on the podcast today. And to listeners, I encourage you to continue to listen. We'll have more well-done leaders in the months and weeks ahead. So Joe, thanks again.